We can start. Okay, so maybe these words don't have some meaning to you. Some of you maybe have used it. Some of you maybe have tried to use it. These cheat sheets, some of you regretted for using them. So in the next 40-45 minutes, you will get the idea what are actually cheat sheets and what's the meaning of the word. I don't know the translation in Russian, but definitely is not a cheat sheet. So, who am I? First of all, my name is Jure Zakharchev. I'm Quality Assurance Line Manager at Sivas. I have 15 years of experience in software testing. I'm software testing trainer. I'm teaching software testing on Academy in Skopje in Macedonia. Actually, I started in teaching in Serbia, so I was traveling several times per week to teach on the niche university. I'm also a conference and meetup speaker, so I'm speaking a lot on conferences. So this is my, in these 2 months, 5th or 6th conference. Test automation and agile testing evangelist. So I love to speak a lot about software testing and let's have a sit. So definitely software testing is one of the things that I make with passion, and I'm also a CETTB board member. The agenda, what we're going to talk about, the problem of modern testing. So what is the problem that we need to solve it? So a lot of the approaches that we are doing, a lot of approaches and a lot of, how to say, things that we are applying are not meant for the modern testing. They're actually for an older period of time that should be forgotten. Oops. Then we have some ideas for improvement, some ideas that are not related to cheat sheets, but they evolving from the traditional approach into the more modern approach. Then we have the cheat sheets and definition of cheat sheets. What are cheat sheets? And some recommendation from my side how to proceed. You know this problem, and you're stuck with a lot of paperwork, a lot of test cases, and a lot of things that you don't know how to prioritize. You don't know what to do with them. You just have a huge pile of, let's say, paperwork, even it's digital paperwork, but actually it's a paperwork that you need to populate. And every time, on every different system, on every application, it's almost the same thing, only different project, different client, and so on and so on. First of all, it can be simplified by simple to-do list. Oops. So it's not like to create a to-do list and do nothing about that to-do list, but it's about fulfilling the to-do list. So it has a lot of, even looks simplified, it has a lot of work. Some of the test design techniques, if you use them, if you use some of the test design techniques, we will notice that boundary value analysis generates huge number of test cases. Even if we use boundary value analysis, even if we apply them, we will generate huge number of test cases on a lot of fields, for example, because we can apply it on simple things, so we can simplify the things. So is there, for example, if we test different application with same logic, is there a need to repeat the same test design techniques over and over again on the fields that are same? Then we have, boundary value analysis test cases are redundant for majority of fields and functions. So even on the same application, you have a redundancy, repeating the things over and over again for something that is the same thing. For example, if you need to test a field, for example, let's take an e-commerce site, and you're testing the price of some field. So you have on the product details page, you have on the this shortened version that is popping up, you have the price in the cart section. So you have on 3 or 4 places. So if you apply the technique over and over again without reasoning that is the same thing, we'll spend a lot of time and a lot of effort. Decision tables can generate big number of conditions. Someone will say, yeah, I'm going to apply this basic test design techniques, let's say decision tables. But if you have more than 5 conditions, having a decision table is useless because you will generate more than 32 or maybe even more test case. Heuristics. Has anyone heard about heuristics? Does anyone know? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people, usually, yeah, that's the number. Even I had a conference with almost 800 people, only 5 or 6 people knew about heuristics. So what are the heuristics? Heuristics are very simple way of solving problems. They're not the correct way, but they are the most optimum and most efficient way at this given moment. So we don't even know what are heuristics. Maybe we are using some of them, you will see later. But sometimes, believe me, I have seen a lot of people don't even consider using them. They don't even try to learn something about and apply them. Why? Because I was taught 15 years ago to test on that way, and I'm not going to change my way. So this is a nonsense. This was the answer that I get from someone with now more than 15 years of experience. And again, exploratory testing. We are applying exploratory testing, but usually that is based on just simply, let's click here, without some specific, without some specific logic. So we are not, the idea is not to hunt for a specific type of defects. We are not going with that idea, but we are just, let's try to click. So even when applying exploratory testing, it should have some reasonable logic behind it. And at the end, writing useless test cases. Writing test cases, in 2 days everything is changed, updating test cases, everything is changed again, updating test cases again, when you're going to test. So this is the question. Why is this the question? Because we don't have deliveries in 2 years. We have deliveries in 2 weeks. Our delivery will be tomorrow, not in 2 weeks, because developers didn't finish their job on time, so we need to test as soon as possible. If we apply that logic and start doing a lot of writing traditional test cases, we don't have time to accomplish our testing. If we follow the simple rules of test cases, we are just following the same thing. Navigate to the application, log into the system. You're already doing that. Why writing these things? Yeah, please. A lot of these things should be, adapted in order to speed up your testing. Requirements. Nowadays, requirements are not well described. Who has seen a well-described requirements in the last 5 years? Is there someone who have seen well-described requirements? Just raise your hand. Raise your hand. No one? So yeah, this is definitely the problem. I was asked on one conference, what can you say about requirement coverage? Covering the requirements generating a traceability matrix for covering the requirements is an easy task. The problem is the lack of requirements. The requirements you don't have written. This is the problem. So you have requirements in someone's head. Doesn't mean that you don't have requirements. Someone needs mind reading, and someone needs to read the mind of the product owner or the business analyst in order to understand the requirements. The requirements are there. Even the applications are there. They exist in someone's head, they exist in some Excel file, they exist somewhere, but they exist actually. Even they are not in application, they're not in software, the application is there, the process is still in progress. If you take a bank, they're doing their business. They're not starting tomorrow when we will deliver their application. So they're doing the business. We need to update that. Requirements are constantly changing. So we are seeing this mostly every day or every week. So we are seeing this a lot. Requirements, I had a project on which I worked and the requirements were changing in few hours. Because the stakeholders, actually, it was, they bought the business from one company. It was a financial institution, and all the stakeholders were new, and the product owner was not sure how it should work. So he was contacting the stakeholders because they were new, most of them. They didn't know what to do, what should they do, so they were guessing the things. So in one meeting with one stakeholder, we had one requirement. On another meeting with another stakeholder, we have something that is against this, so we need to come with a proper solution. So this is what is happening with the fast-growing businesses, especially with those who were acquired from different companies, people who already worked there, they are not anymore there, so you cannot get help. So this is in the line of writing the test cases, generating some ideas for testing, and so on and so on. Changing the test cases instead of testing, so this is the biggest problem. We are constantly working on changes, updates. The time for testing is very limited. The fact that developers are giving us more and more stress because they're not delivering with the day one, but they're delivering later and later during the sprint, and most often the last few days. So we need to do a lot of updates. We need to do a lot of changes. But why doing these things when we can have a rest and prepare for the worst? If you test, for example, for 2 weeks, and you're finding a critical defect that was done on the day one, and you're finding on the last day, doesn't mean that you do the testing. The proper testing was not done correctly. If you're having these situations, you need to improve this. You need to change your behavior, and the critical things should be found first. That's the idea. Everything that is critical is obvious. That means that you focused on irrelevant things instead of focusing on the things that are good. Actually, that are good. Everything is good, but something that is critical, something that is severe for the system. So some of you are taking pictures. Okay. As you see, test cases are not testing. So remember this. Writing test cases and counting numbers doesn't mean that you did your testing. Why? Maybe 10 or 12 years ago, we worked as a competing with a company in India. They had around 50 testers, and we were around 10 testers. They were just following test cases. Someone was writing these test cases, they were following, they were not spotting the obvious things, and they were not reporting anything that was more than normal. Nothing with high priority, nothing with critical. Even the application was not working at all. It was waterfall approach. We had months of war rooms closed in a room, bigger than this, maybe double than this, in Denver, in the United States, and we were chasing defects. All together. We were sitting like this, so many people, one to each other. There was no even space for breathing and solving defects. Why? Because people are just, the other company was following test cases and they were not spotting. And once I asked the question, why you're not reporting this, you're seeing, but it is not in the test case. So if it's not in the test case, I'm not going to report it. This is the biggest problem that we do with the test case, because we are chasing numbers. Number of written test cases, number of executed test cases, and so on. That is not the testing. That is not the idea. First of all, before we start with changing the approach and improving the things, we need to get out of the comfort zone. It's very easy to sit in the comfort zone and take no actions for years, do the same things over and over again. Why? Because someone told you to do that, someone teach you to do that, and you're not going to change. So you know the story about, maybe someone will know with the fridge and salami, someone will know with chicken. So for Thanksgiving, you know, Americans buy this turkey. It's huge turkey, so they're putting in the oven, bake it, and they gather the family and friends. So someone, let's imagine someone has, his wife he bought a turkey, and his wife just chopped the turkey, put it in the oven, and bake it. And the question was, why you're doing that? I want the whole turkey, I want to be baked like everyone normally in the United States is doing it. And her answer was, but my family is doing on this way for years. And she called her mother and asked why we are baking the turkey like this. And she said, I have no idea. Ask your grandma. We are doing it for years like this. We are baking the turkey. And she called the grandma and asked, why we are baking the turkey on pieces? Why we are not baking as a whole? You didn't bought a bigger pan, so you're still baking in the small pan? So this is the problem. This is actually the reality. Because we were taught 15 years ago to do it that way, and we're still doing it that way. We are not improving things, we are not changing things. So this approach of cheat sheets maybe will evolve in 2 years. Maybe it will be, how to say, irrelevant. Maybe we'll find out a solution that will automate this for us on every application in the world. Maybe someone will sit, write that solution because we already have generalized most of the things. So maybe there will be no need to write this. So even I'm telling it now, maybe in 2 years will be obsolete. So we need to continue. That's getting out of the comfort zone, not using the same thing. Okay. So, you know the story about agile, we are very agile and so on and so on. You know the things, my comic project draft, just write some checklist again, follow that checklist on every single project, because writing a scenario for a movie is very easy, so you just need to follow the steps. First of all, if you're writing test plans, forget about huge test plans. Start something with small. Google one-page test plan. That's what you need. I'm not going to explain because test plans are not what we need to explain today. So, pirate rules, guidelines only, some may seem obvious, some may seem pedantic until you inherit a test suite. So until someone else has wrote a test suite for you, you will see how complex is the system. When you're doing everything on your own, it's pretty easy, but when someone else was involved previously and you need to inherit that, then it's a real mess. Cheat sheets. You all know what are cheat sheets. So you all been to faculty in university and you try this tiny piece of papers with very small font with your pen and you try to hide from the professor. These are cheat sheets. These are the things that you've written. You didn't write the entire books. You wrote formulas. You wrote some short definitions. You wrote some things that that help you to remind yourself. By definition, these are cheat sheets. It's a consist set of notes used for quick reference. That's why they are legal. No one is forbidding you to use them. On faculty, it was different. If you're using them, you will fail. If they caught you, but otherwise, cheat sheets are so named because they may be used by students without the instructor's knowledge to cheat on a test. Yeah. Cheat sheet is a physical piece of paper often filled with equations and so facts in compressed writing. So no details. In software testing, cheat sheets can be used for various purposes, including the technical common stuff and/or domain rules and practices for the software. Let's say simple places where you can apply the same rules over and over again on millions of systems, on millions of fields, without limitations. Let's say you need to test paths or files. What you need to try, you don't need to write test cases. Always the same thing. You need to write long names, more than 225 characters, special characters in names, non-existent, already exist, no space, minimum space, write protected, unavailable, locked, remote machine or corrupted file. If you apply these things, if you try these things, always where you have something, paths and files, the same thing applies. So do I need to write test case again? No, they're already there. Time and dates. We have this problem very often. Testing times and dates. And we are again inventing reinventing the wheel. These are the possible things that we need to test on times and dates. Then we have numbers. We are just trying the regular boundary value analysis. 5 fields, minimum just below the minimum, average, maximum just above the maximum. Nothing beyond that. So we don't care about the other things. But look how many combinations we have about numeric fields. If we need to write the test case again on every page that has these fields, we need to spend weeks and months and updating. Why? Also the strings. Some general rules for, let's say, an IP address. Then navigation, so we need to know that. Navigating back, navigating forward, navigating, doing refresh, then do a logout, try to access the URL, and so on and so on. Input fields, we are testing more and more. Some web syntax, how to validate broken fields and how to validate CSS, so we just don't need to go and I'm looking for the people that have opened the console of developer tools and looking for errors. Do a simple check on these links and you will, maybe they are changed now because W3 is changing the URLs. Send your system to be scanned there and no need to repeat the same things over and over. Some testing wisdom concepts from Elizabeth Hendrickson. Actually, this is not my invention. It was invented by Elizabeth Hendrickson, and just search for a cheat sheet on Test Obsessed, and these are 2-page PDF. This is a 2-page PDF, and you will have all these things printed on a piece of paper, put it on your board somewhere that you remind yourself, or on the monitor with sticky notes, and never you need to rewrite these things again. Now about heuristics. So very often we use a lot of these things, and sometimes we don't use them at all. For example, if we need to test, let's say, a pagination on some page, search results, we are going to do some random cases. We are going to do maybe 20 tests about that without some particular reason. We hope that we will find more defects. Just one reference: if we apply correct test design techniques, let's say pairwise testing, if we apply it correctly, with two-pair testing, we may spot more than 95% we will cover more than 95% of the application. The part that we are testing, we cannot cover the entire application with pairwise testing. There is no silver bullet. Forget about silver bullets. And this is solving only a few things of your applications, not everything in your systems. So if we apply it correctly, we will have approximate coverage of 95–96%. If you're chasing 6-way testing, n-wise testing, just for these 4%. That is with the manual testing when we don't measure coverage. This is mathematical model that I mentioned. So mathematically, it's calculated like that. But when you do, that should be, everything should be optimal in the world, in the universe, and so on. But when you write a simple test case, you're writing them, repeating the same steps. Doesn't mean that you have a coverage. I have measured this. It's not more than 15% because you're not applying any logical model behind it. That's why I took the search function. So you need to test several cases. Returning 0 results. Usually I worked on an application, I just inherited that application I came, and 2 of the colleagues already worked there, and they never tested a single search with 0 results. And the application was failing on 0 results. Because the query was returning null, so there are no results set, so it was not handled case. So returning 0 results, returning at least 1 result, and returning as many as possible. How to remember that? How to remember that heuristic 1, 0, many? That is what you need to test. Or how to remember, I mentioned boundary value analysis several times. Just the minimum, just below the minimum, average, maximum, just above the maximum. Having this on mind, you will not remember the case, oh, I need to test 1, 0, I need to test 999 or something like that. Don't remember such things. Remember how to apply it on more cases. Because if I tell you that you can apply boundary value analysis on password field, no one is thinking on that because no one thought, oh, the minimum value is 8 characters, maximum is 32 characters. Let's apply boundary value analysis. Try with 7 characters, try with 33 characters. No one applied that on password field because we think that boundary value analysis is just for testing numbers, which is wrong. Boundary value analysis can be applied even in performance testing. So we are applying for performance testing, how many users to send to the system. Even more heuristics. These are very helpful. So there are a lot of books actually that you can read about exploratory testing and that you can apply related to exploratory testing. Even some frameworks, yeah, and so on and so on. How to create cheat sheets? Very simple. Stereotype. It's normal to do stereotypes here. Not in real life, but for the application it's normal. Generalize the things. What can be the same thing for multiple fields? Reuse. Something that was already created, reuse it. Why rewriting from scratch? Visualize. Try to visualize the things, use mind maps. This is the best way to visualize the things and to get more and more ideas. That's why I created a mind map for this, just for your reference. Keep it silly simple. So this is the most important rule. If you're not keeping it silly simple, the guy who will come next to you will not understand anything. The biggest problem is that we believe we will write test cases and someone who doesn't know anything about the application will come and will click. This is never happening. Or the number of cases when this is happening is very small. People, first of all, because we are doing everything in English, don't even understand your English level, or even my English level, not your. So we don't speak, even when I'm speaking Macedonian, I speak with a dialect and people having issues to understand me because I'm speaking a dialect. So there was a joke with a colleague of mine when I was explaining about one telecommunication company about activation and deactivation of a number. Because I used the word de, for example, deactivation, please, please, could you do this for me? So he was, but why? I'm asking about activation, not about deactivation. Yeah, that's the case. Someone is coming to the store and asking, deactivate amigo, please activate this number for me. And he was, but we're having these issues even when we are talking, not only when we are writing. So why do we expect that someone will understand us? In 3 weeks, when we need to do the regression testing, we are not going to understand what we have written previously. And easy to change, easy to update, it's very similar to KISS. Traditional test case process can be useless. Writing test cases, we don't have time to retest, we don't have time to update because everything was changed. Fields were moved from this page, and we created the test case just for this page. We don't create the test case for all the fields, even there are simple fields. Cannot recall what was tested with exploratory testing. This is the biggest problem. That's why I'm always recommending session-based testing. Session-based testing with part of these cheat sheets can be very useful, and if you focus on only one type of a problem, you can discover a lot of defects in a very limited time. So there is no need to spend a lot of time. Simplicity. This is the rule of success. So you know Google. Blank page, search field, and 2 buttons. And everyone is using Google. Everyone loves Google. If you take Yahoo, if you take Microsoft, Bing, no one is using this because they have a lot of informations that are not important to you. So if you follow the same rule that Google followed, simplicity, that is the key of the success. That's why Google is successful in this area. Stereotyping can be useful, but only when we are doing testing, not in real life. Don't do stereotypes in real life. Sometimes can be problematic. Cheat sheets can be easily updated and reused. So if something changed in these cheat sheets that I showed you, you can easily change them, update them, reuse them as many times as you want. There are no limitations for that. And that's all from my side. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Okay.
Thank you. It was really interesting. So I work in bank, and we have a lot of bureaucracy. And if we want to finish some feature, a lot of test packs must be done. So the main problem of cheat sheets, they are illegal.
And actually, they're not illegal. A lot of people think that, especially those who are ISO 9001 certified, think that, no, this is against ISO. Yes, it is. You have a documentation, you have a plan, it's compliant with the rules of ISO, it's compliant with the rules of the banks, and then they can be useful. Especially applying all of these things when you have loans. If you have from this amount to that amount. So a lot of the, for example, equivalence partitions are in the heuristics. So nothing is against these compliances because you have documented. Exploratory testing, because nothing is documented, you don't know what will test. Yeah, it's against these compliances. But having everything documented and applied and know the exact place where it needs to be applied is correctly, and it is according to these compliances. So you're just reducing the writing the things. Some other questions?
Thank you for your lecture. My name is Anastasia, and in your company, do you have test cases or you just give up on this documentation and you only have cheat lists?
So yeah, this is an interesting question because my company is huge, more than 1,000 employees, and we work for very different clients. And the number of clients that are using the traditional approach is very small and even changing. Because we are working with several Swedish banks, we are working with clients from all around Europe and USA, and these are companies, especially one of the companies, it was a very bureaucracy company for which I worked on a project. They brought a lot of trainers to train the staff, the people that are working in their companies to act differently. So we had very traditional model. When I came in this company in 2015, I started working for that client. They were very traditional. In few months, they changed the entire vision of their product, and they started delivering faster. This is very important that the client is convinced that they need to change problems, that they need to change the way of working. Why is this very important? When you're saying to the client, we don't have results, our results are very slow, the client knows that he will fire you, that your company don't need to your client. You're saying, I have a suggestion, but you're not defining, well, what is that suggestion? Client will say, no, we are not going to do improvements. But when you inform your client how to do the proper way, then your client will take that and will not ask questions because will trust you how you're doing these things. Will trust you using cheat sheets, will trust you using, instead of tens of pages test plans, just one slideshow, one PowerPoint slideshow for test plan. So yes, those clients that we have convinced, more than 80%, they have adapted to this approach and they're using this approach. They're accepting this approach. You're the experts. We are hiring you because you're the experts. We don't know anything about the testing. This is what most of them have said to us.
Thank you for the presentation. And my question is about applicable industry. I mean, all things that you mentioned before, applicable in some cases for e-commerce, for maybe in banking. But what do you think about healthcare, maybe aviation or something like that?
Usually when I'm presenting some things that are different for healthcare, I'm not talking about softwares in healthcare, but embedded systems reliable with machines. We talk about healthcare then. I've never tested such systems. I don't know what are the challenges, so I cannot tell you. I know that there are also a lot of rules and compliances that need to be fulfilled. So I cannot give you a lot of details, but definitely we have used it on healthcare systems like reservation and booking, stuff like that, so it's helpful there. But testing the embedded systems of healthcare, I cannot give you details about that, if that is your question. So I hope that I answered.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. First of all, I'd like to add a little bit to your first answer to first question. There is an expression or aphorism, fake it until you make it. Because if you don't say anyone that you're using cheat spreadsheets, no one will ever know.
Yeah.
You can just keep it in your cabinetry and open if you need to write some manual test case. My question is, well, you mentioned that there are some frameworks exist. And the question, how usually we can use it? Is it just for creating or generating test data for manual test cases? Or we can even integrate in our frameworks?
Yeah, definitely it's about generating ideas, regardless is it manual or automated testing. If you are maybe some tester that has some developer mindset, maybe some of these approaches will use. These are not programming development frameworks. These are just rules for simplifying your ideas. So, yeah.
You switched so fast, so it wasn't possible to see that it just...
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was an interesting story. My ex-colleague, I think that we have one more question in the back. A colleague of mine came to me and asked me, the project manager is asking about numbers, about test case numbers. So my answer was, give him numbers, but I need to write the test case. No, you don't need, just give him numbers. And he did that. He gave him numbers. How many test cases you have? 2,000. Okay, that's fine. How did you know that he's not going to review? He don't know anything about the system. How he's going to review all these 2,000? And he continued, yeah, this week I wrote 50 test cases. Yeah, 50 test cases. Okay, that's good. Just progress like that. So what you said, just do it on that way. Don't inform anyone that you're doing something. Yeah, did you do it? Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Who is reading what you're doing?
Hello, thank you for your talk. I have a small question. Do you use bug magnet plugin? It's
bug magnet. I think it was from Gojko Adzic, or
yeah.
We use a lot, especially by testing these things that we already know. But sometimes we have, especially banking systems, where 2 years ago, until 2 years ago, we're still in Internet Explorer, so we were not allowed to use Chrome because the application was not working because of this limitation. But definitely in Chrome, use such tools, and definitely, especially in frameworks, use data generators, data fakers actually. So when you do, instead of generating random numbers, use data faker that already did for you. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. And do you know any, same thing, same tool for desktop apps? So yeah, you know.
For that, no. To be honest, I'm not sure, but yeah, definitely you can use the cheat sheet, which is the best option. Thank you. If we don't have any questions, so I think that's it. Do we have something online, or we don't have online?
Question from online. If I have no influence on my product owner, how can implement cheat sheets on my project? How to prove that they are good?
So you need to, first of all, there are two possible things. First of all, to try to explain through practice. This is what I did. This is how I found defects. And it took, I don't know, 1 day, and this is how it was done previously. It took 5 days. And the other reasonable solution is to change the company. Okay, no more questions?
Thank you.
Just don't forget to vote if you liked my presentation.